According to the professor, what is one reason it is important to study the material from which pottery was made? According to the professor, why is it difficult to gain information on the function of a pot?
Amber wants to remind you question 3 and question 4 are the same kind of question of the question 2. You know, it asks about the reasons why, right? So we also need to, to put it down in your notes, the reasons and the explanations. So for question 3, why it's important to study the material, right? It's also in the second point, and it proves the origin. We study the material so that we can know where it comes from and the distribution of it. So we can get the information on origin.
According to the professor, what is one reason it is important to study the material from which pottery was made?
Yeah, it's definitely option 2. It can help archaeologists establish where the pottery came from. That is origin of the pottery, right? And
according to the professor, why is it difficult to gain information on the function of a pot?
Okay, so point 3 talks about the function. And here, because I know that the professor talks about the reasons, so I put down on the notes. Why is it difficult? Because the first one is the pottery was not in the primary context, right? And the professor makes an example. And the second one, the pottery pieces in one place does not necessarily have the same function. So we study them in groups, not in individuals. And this question reminds us we need to pay attention to the paralleled information. Like this is the reason 1, and this is reason 2. We cannot mix them all together because we cannot level them, right? We cannot structure them. Okay, always clear, always keep the structure clear. And that's the question. So the answer should be first and the last.
What is a skeuomorph?
So question 5 is also a typical ask of listening. It talks about the new academic term. We need to be attention when the professor talks about a new term or related concept. We need to be alert. Okay, we need to understand the meaning of the term. We don't necessarily put down every word on the note, but we need to understand it. Okay, in your mind, you need to remember it because it may be a question for you when the material is finished. So what is a skeuomorph? Let's check the notes. It's in the 4th point. Here, I just use the initial letters to represent the term. Okay, so it's a copy. It's not the same material. You can use the symbols, okay, and also some pictures or letters to represent the information. it's not in the same material. It does not serve the same function. So in the 4 options, second one, skeuomorph is a copy of an object but made from a different material. 这个有一点像我们中国里所说的这个赝品，就是它虽然长得一样，就是它的形状都一样，但是它的材质是不一样的，所以材质不同会有不同的功能。然后当时他还举了一个例子，就是那个它这个这一个这个陶器，它的手柄太大了啊，一个弯曲的形状。那如果是 bronze 是青铜，如果是青铜的话，它可以很好的这个是正常的一个 container。但是如果是它是一个 ceramic， 它是一个陶瓷制品的话，那这样这个部分就太重了，它无法支撑整个 body， 对不对？当然这里 example 它没有考到啊，但是我们还是要对例子要非常的敏感才可以。just as I mentioned, pay attention to the examples, what the example is and what kind of points or opinions it wants to prove. Okay.
Listen again to part of the lecture, then answer the question.
So if I ask you what most archaeologists do with all those pieces of broken pottery they find at excavation sites, you'd probably say that they help establish the time period of the site. Pretty obvious, huh?
Why does the professor say this?
Pretty obvious, huh?
That's the last question. For many questions, the last one is generally a cut from the professor's talking, like a short sentence or several words. And when we do this question, we need to be careful when we hear some special talkings like metaphors or native speaker idioms or comparisons or the professor's own experience. So in this question, it is very easy, and we know that it shows the students should be familiar with the point, right? But in other listening materials, the professor's talking might be a little bit complicated because what the professor says does not mean the actual meaning of it. You know, sometimes it's ironic or sometimes it's metaphor. We need to keep in mind those talkings when we listen, and also remember the context of the sentence. Okay, context is very important. And that's all 6 questions. We are now finished. And at last, I want to review the skills in the notes, okay? So first, the structure. You need always follow the outline, okay, the traces of the talking. And the second thing, pay attention to examples like the facts, truth, or things happen there. And remember what kind of opinion or talking the examples wants to prove, okay? So the third thing is you need to pay attention to the questions in the listening material, like the students' questions, or the professor asks the students or asks the professors himself or herself. And also remember the explanations. And the fourth one, please pay attention to new terms. You don't need to put every word down on your note, but please understand them, remember them in your mind. So the last one, we can use simplified words, signals, or Chinese characters to help us simplify our notes to write down efficiently. Okay? So that's all for our video, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.